let's get to our first main topic today. And the first main topic is submitted to us by Don Tuin, who writes, "Good morning, John. While everyone was all excited about the Fox Disney acquisition, one of the sad casualties is that a number of smaller and story-driven movie projects have been axed by the mouse. Movies like Mouse Guard, ironic, News of the World, and on the come up, it appears all Disney is interested in is big franchise moneymakers. Isn't this something that should worry us as film fans? Thanks." All right, so look, we knew when Disney was going to be taking over Fox, we understood that there were probably going to be casualties. Certainly, there were staff casualties, because I can't remember what the number was, guys. Was it somewhere around 4,000 or something like that?
Yeah, that's what they said.
People lost their jobs, and you knew at some point some movie projects would get the axe too. I love this graphic Ray put together. So we see On the Come Up being thrown out based on the work of the same person who did The Hate U Give. We Mouse Guard, Rob, you were talking about that the other day, about how disappointed you hear that the Mouse Guard, although that's probably going to end up at another studio. And the Tom Hanks project, News of the World, also gets axed. I believe that's going over to Paramount though, so we are going to see this film. Now, this has some people concerned. Now, there are other projects still moving forwards. Projects like West End Story, that's going to keep going on. Kingsman is going to continue. There are other things like this.
Avatar.
Well, yeah, obviously Avatar is going to keep going as well. But here's the thing. I've been hearing a lot of people saying today that this is just a sign that all Disney cares about is the big blockbuster franchise. That's all Disney cares about, big blockbuster franchise. And I don't necessarily think that's true, but this is kind of highlighted by one of the websites that I really enjoy, and I quote often here on the John Campus Show, but I disagree with them a little bit here, but I want to use them as an example because they're one of my favorite sites that I read. It's Slash Film. I really enjoy Slash Film. And they wrote their opinion on this way, and I'll tell you why I disagree with this. But they wrote this. For example, talking about the slashing of these films, no pun intended. For example, the Hollywood Reporter says Disney killed On the Come Up didn't make the cut because Thomas's last project, The Hate U Give, lost $30 to $40 million, despite a modest $23 million budget and a marketing spend believed to be at about $30 million. Unfortunately, the film only made about $26 million bucks at the box office. After you take away the theater cut, yeah, it lost between 30 and 40 million bucks. The Hate U Give was highly acclaimed among critics, but because the film failed to make money, Disney is now unwilling to give a similar project a fair shake. That should alarm people, but probably won't. All right, here's kind of my thought on this. Is it, well, just because it didn't make money, they're not going to give another project a fair shake? I mean, come on. Her last project, The Hate U Give, was really good. This is just a sign that Disney doesn't want to give smaller movies a chance. I disagree completely. I disagree completely. Why? Because of the fact that was brought up in the earlier statement. The Hate U Give lost $30 to $40 million, despite the fact that it only cost in the 20s to make. Despite, when you're a movie that's that low budget, there should be no excuse for losing $30 to $40 million. There's no excuse for that. If you were a $120 million film, yeah, I could see how you could lose $30 to $40 million. This was a small project and it still lost $30 to $40 million. Now, what people then bring up is, but The Hate U Give was so good. That only proves the point even more. Because if The Hate U Give turned out to be a bad movie, and it was a brilliant movie, but if The Hate U Give turned out to be a bad movie, you could make the excuse, well, yeah, it lost 30 to 40 million, but only because the filmmakers adapting it didn't do a good job. If they had done a more faithful job, if they had done a better job, if they had made the movie better, that's a property that could have made more money. But you can't make that excuse because the movie was outstanding. The movie's fantastic. So this isn't Disney. This is any freaking studio. If they were looking at a property and saying, okay, we've got this on the come up, all right, based on the work of the person who just did The Hate U Give, all right, and The Hate U Give lost $30 to $40 million despite the fact that it was a brilliant movie. So what can you possibly bring to the table to say, well, we'll make On the Come Up better? I mean, so I'll tell you what, guys, I reject this notion right now that this is a sign that Disney is just shooing away anything that's not a big franchise film. No, I think almost any studio would look at this proposition and go, this might be one we take a pass on because we're not in the business to lose 20 million bucks when we put out a movie. We're not in the business to lose 30 million bucks when we're putting out a movie. Now, and I think that is highlighted by the fact that Mouse Guard has found another studio, News of the World has found another studio, but On the Come Up hasn't. So I don't know. That's just the way I kind of see this sort of thing. Greg, you're looking at this whole scenario and situation. How do you interpret all of this?
I mean, going off of what you're saying, I agree, because once this Disney Fox deal happened, this is something that everyone who's been following this story has speculated it. So the second there's an inkling of this happening, or they, like the three main projects that got dropped, the big talk starts happening of we're only going to get big blockbuster films. Disney doesn't care about this, and people feel like people react really heavily as if Disney's the only movie studio now. Because the second I heard about like the Tom Hanks Paul Greengrass project getting dropped, I'm like, oh, it's probably going to find another studio. And I didn't know they did until you just said it, actually. But when I heard that, I figured it probably would. I think that this is not surprising. I mean, the Disney Fox deal, I don't think Fox would have done this deal with Disney if Fox didn't have some, financial decision making that they had trouble with, where Disney was going to step in and have to clean some stuff up. I mean, I'm not excited that they got rid of the Fox 2000 banner, because I like movies like Love, Simon and Hidden Figures, but for the most part, I pretty much just agree with everything you're saying, because this is not this is not surprising when you're hearing movies like Mouse Guard, which had a budget of like $150 to $170 million, which is kind of, I mean, like, would that movie really make that money back? Because
you're talking about a movie that needed to make about $380–400 million just to break even at that point.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's I don't know who's excited for Mouse Guard, and maybe there's a small fan base, but it does. Yeah, I'm sure Robert Meyer Burnett was. But to me, it just sounds like, I feel like what they want to do is redirect some focus. They want to focus on a little bit more mid-budget films. And of course, they're going to focus on their franchise properties. And I think they're doing some cleanup here. And I feel like whatever films get the axe over at Fox, I'm sure they'll probably move over to someplace else where they can be better served ultimately. So to me, this is not a freak out scenario, the way how a lot of people are sort of reacting to this.
And the other thing to keep in mind too here is that you mentioned Fox 2000, which it does suck that they exited, but they did keep Fox Searchlight. Yeah. And Rob, at CinemaCon, they highlighted a lot of these movies they're very proudly behind with Fox Searchlight, and they're doing that stuff. But anyway, Rob, you're hearing all this. What's your reaction to this?
Well, I think it's important to remember that Disney just spent $70 billion to acquire Fox. The thing they can't be doing their first 2 or 3 or 4, even 5 years, is lose money at all. And like a movie like Mouse Guard, which is based on an incredible series of graphic novels, somebody described it as Game of Thrones with mice. I wouldn't go that far, but it is that kind of a story. First of all, it's a beautiful graphic novel series, but $170 million untried property that's new is a huge risk. And if Disney starts, if they can't come out of the gate with their Fox acquisition and start making, they've got to have winner after winner after winner, so they can go back to the shareholders who are already going, you spent $70 billion? I mean, come on, you got ESPN not delivering. We got to get some cheddar coming in. They have to be very shrewd. And my man Bob Iger, I haven't talked to him about this, but I'm sure, Greg, see, I talk to Bob Iger all the time. But I'm sure it's a big, I'm just kidding, but it's a big deal, and it's a lot of money. And while the economic reality might not want to be something we tend to think of as film fans, it is not a surprise to me. And Disney is very open to, like, please, somebody take these off. We want these movies to get made. Take them off of our hands so we can concentrate on making sure that our acquisition, they want to shore up their defenses and make sure that the foundation of this Fox sale is sound. That's why we are going to get Deadpool 3. They are going to make these movies because those movies are risk averse. They're risk free. And we'll probably get another Alien film, because even though Alien Covenant didn't make as much money as it might have it should have been better. But we're going to see Fox movies that are guaranteed moneymakers, and that's what they have to do.
At least the game. You know, it's funny because I've had a number of people write to me and say, John, like, do you think now Disney should buy Sony next? Who do you think Disney should buy next? I'm like, Disney just spent over half their net worth to buy Fox. They ain't buying nothing. They ain't buying lunch for the next number of years. They've got to restock the coffers for a while here and get that safety blanket back.